point of view of who may win the award. And I must say, One Young World has consistently engaged on the issue of climate change. And it is, I think, appropriate because we only have one world and we are endangering that world. I was reading recently again the latest report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and I just quote from it, that without additional mitigation efforts beyond those in place today, and even with adaptation, warming by the end of the 21st century will lead to a very high risk of severe, widespread and irreversible impacts globally. That's 95% of the scientists of the world talking. And it's scary because, a child born today will live for 100 years in this part of the world, for less in some of the developing parts of the world, but will live through the whole cycle of whether or not we're on course for a safe world. So I think it's really good that young people, I think, get this very much. In my conversations with young people, I'm delighted that they really do have this sense of the intergenerational equity, that we must use the resources of the world in a way that allows future generations to have equal opportunity and resources to develop. And that was, again, the Brundtland Commission's report more than 25 years ago. So when we talk about fairness between generations, we're talking about the future of life on the planet, about how we use the planetary boundaries, whether we stay within those boundaries. And I think we can achieve climate justice for all if we focus on intergenerational equity. I'm actually very pleased that certain court cases have been taken now by teenagers, particularly in the United States, taken to say, you are not on course to give us a safe world, and that makes them standing in court to sue, and that's been recognized. And at the other side of it, which I think fits very well the projects we're going to look at, is an article that I think I quoted in 2014 in Dublin of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because I think it's an article that isn't as well known as it should be. And the article says, Article 29, and it says, everyone has duties to the community, without which, in which alone, the free and full development of your personality is possible. So unless you know that you have duties to the community and do something about it, you yourself don't reach your full potential. And I think that's a very interesting human rights concept that we haven't heard enough about, but it's very much one that lends itself to the solidarity we need, the empathetic leadership we need for climate justice, and it's the background, I think, of this award. So now I would really very much like to listen to the three presentations, starting, I know, with Purity. So I don't know whether you want to introduce her, Kate, or whether I can just see her beautiful face in front of me and listen to her.
Purity, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself and your project to Mrs. Robinson.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Yes.
My name is Johi. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm very pleased to meet you. It's such an honor. Yeah, I'm going to go straight to my project because I only have 6 minutes. And Mazingira Safi Initiative is a community-based organization whose aim is to create employment opportunities and also to develop a proper waste management system. And Mazingira Safi is a Kiswahili word for clean environment. We do this because we believe that man and nature can coexist together in harmony, that communities are assets in environmental management, and also economically empowered live empowered lives. So the main problems we face are, one is environmental degradation. Nairobi uses 700 tons of charcoal a day. And out of this 700 tons of charcoal, 88 tons of charcoal dust are produced. This means that trees have to be cut down in order to have enough charcoal to supply our demand. And also this charcoal waste, the 88 tons, add to the crisis of waste management that we already have. As Nairobi, we produce 3,000 tons of waste a day, and only a third of this waste is actually taken up, which means 2/3 plus the 88 tons of charcoal really bring a challenge. Another thing, it's expensive fuel. 82% of households in Nairobi use charcoal. And one bundle of charcoal is $0.5 and it only burns for 1.5 hours. This is very expensive. If you look at the prices of gas, it goes up to 5 to 65% of a household's income, and this is not enough. Therefore, because of the expensive prices of the charcoal and fuel, some people have resorted to burning plastic bottles and rubber shoes because they burn for longer so that they can be able to cook a proper meal. And this brings me to my third problem, which is respiratory problems. When you burn plastic bottles in your house to cook food, when you burn rubber soles, you emit toxic fumes. And this is really bad for the children and also for the other people in the house and also for the environment because of a lack of ways to deal with the plastic bottles. And also the fourth problem is unemployment. 40% of people in our nation are unemployed, and especially the women, because they can't even be employed in the informal sector, for example, the construction jobs, because they require a lot of manual work, and the men are always chosen over the women because of this. And if the women do work, the work of lifting stones really affects their bodies because our bodies are not designed to do that work. And therefore, we are planning to solve this problem by having the charcoal briquette project. A charcoal briquette is an alternative source of fuel, and it is made by mixing charcoal dust, paper, and water, and then you dry it in the sun for 3 days, and then you can use it to cook food. The advantages of it is that it is cleaner, it is sparkless, which means when you're lighting it, there are no sparks, and therefore it can be used in the house. It is also smokeless, so there's no need for the removal of toxic fumes, and also it burns longer, which means you can cook a meal up to 4 hours. The main meal that people eat here is maize and beans, and for it to be ready, it needs 4 hours. But if you only use charcoal, which is 1.5 hours, you end up using a lot more money. Our target group will be the women and the youth people who are living in a slum where our project is located. The benefits of briquettes, there are 3. One of them is the environmental benefit. One, it is going to reduce pollution by using up the waste charcoal dust and the waste paper, which means all these do not have to be landfilled. The second benefit is it is going to reduce the cutting down of trees, and the third thing is going to reduce the production of toxic fumes by from burning the plastic bottles and the likes. The second benefit is the economic benefit. Charcoal briquetting is income generating. Therefore, you are going to be able to employ people. And also the second thing, it enables people to save money, because if you're buying a bundle of briquettes, you're using $0.3 and it's going to burn for 4 hours. And that means you save $0.7 over the same period. And this money will be used to educate the children by buying their school books. It can also be used to invest, because women have small groups we call chamas here, where you put little amounts of money, and therefore they'll be able to do that. The third thing is the social benefit. One, it is going to restore dignity of people who are unemployed, because people who are employed are empowered, and therefore they feel very purposeful. The second thing, we have noted a rise in cases of prostitution because of the lack of jobs. Therefore, if people are able to, if the women are able to earn money from making the briquettes, there's going to be a reduction of need to go and prostitute themselves to get money for food. The third thing is that when the women will be working in this briquette project, we are going to be providing for them a safe space to come and speak and talk about their problems, because in women-led households, they don't have anyone to talk to besides their children, and yet burdens are many. And also where men are leading the homes, women are really sat on. We are still looking for places to raise our voice. Therefore, this space is going to be for them to ask, how do I deal with this problem? And things along, such challenges. My final point is going to be on the potential for growth. The briquette making project has potential for growth because the briquettes are in high demand, because we will always want to eat food. And also because of the high prices of the charcoal and the kerosene. The second thing is that it is actually a thing that can be trained to one person. And therefore, we are going to develop a briquette training manual in order to empower also other women to go and do it. And therefore, we are going to be impacting many people at a go. Then the third thing, the briquettes don't only have to be made from charcoal dust. They can be made from food waste. And up to 60% of the waste that we actually generate is food. And therefore, we are going to be reducing the emission of methane by using the food waste to produce the briquettes. And therefore, if we win the money, what you're going to do is buy the briquette making machine, and then we are going to build a perimeter for the land we have been given by the chief. And also, we are going to build a place to dry the briquettes and then buy the raw materials. And our aim is to recycle 20,000 kilograms of charcoal dust in the 6 months that we are doing the project for. Before now, it goes on to it becoming sustainable, and also 1,600 kilograms of paper, and employ 6 people in 6 months, and then we are going to continue doing it because we are, and then also it's going to enable Mazingira Safi to be more sustainable. As we do cleanups, we always have a lot of paper, and we always wonder, what do we do with this paper? And now with the briquettes, we're going to be using that paper. And in 5 years, we should be able to employ 120 people and contribute greatly to the women having a voice. As a woman leader, I want other women to see me and also say that I can lead. And also, as giving women this space, they will be able to also empower themselves. Thank you very much. Yes.
Purity, that's a very exciting project, and you've obviously given it a lot of thought and thought of all the angles.
Thank you very much.
I must say, I serve on a big global network called the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves. Have you heard about that?
The cookstones?
The Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves.
Oh, yes, I have.
Because I have some base in Kenya. And
yes, I have heard
a project with the Global Alliance.
Yes.
I really like the idea that you have linked the need to reduce, to reuse, and to recycle, so that we cut down on less trees, that we reuse, and that we also recycle waste paper, waste food, whatever. I think that's really good. You mentioned that the charcoal briquettes would be cheaper than charcoal. I wondered, are you confident that the cost benefit is enough to really make sure that you can market this project? I mean, are you confident that your briquettes can compete with the already established charcoal market and move forward?
Yes. So I'm going to give you a cost breakdown. 1 bag of charcoal dust is 50 kilograms, and it is usually 300 shillings, which is $3. And water is recycled water, so we use, but to give it a cost, it's going to be $0.05, and also transport is $1. For 1 bag of charcoal dust, you make 2 bags of charcoal briquettes. And 1 bag of charcoal briquettes, it's going to be 20. It's going to be 20 kilograms, and that means you're going to be selling it at $9. So from 1 bag of charcoal dust, which is $3, you produce 2 bags of charcoal briquettes, which are 9 plus 9, $18. Therefore, we are sure that we'll be able to not only make profit, but we're going to be able to keep ourselves sustainable. Yes.
Great. And the other point that I thought was very good in your project was the emphasis you placed on empowering women, that women don't get jobs in construction, etc. Therefore, you want to really be able to help them. And I wanted to ask you a little about, because I know there are so many barriers to women being able to take up work sometimes, or so many impediments. Have you thought about this, and what's your thinking about the fact that women will be able to be empowered by this project?
So, okay, let me rephrase the question. So you want me to explain how this project is going to make women more accessible to jobs, as opposed to, oh, okay. So when you look at our informal sector, what the informal sector offers as jobs are metal works, construction works, because they are very manual. And this includes lifting metal, hammering things, and lifting cement and stones. But if you look at the briquettes, it is only mixing things. You're mixing the charcoal dust, you're cutting pieces of paper, and you're not staining your body. Therefore, this is more accessible to women, because women can't bend down for so long. They cannot carry heavy things for so long. Therefore, it is going to be mentally stable for them. It is going to be physically stable for them, and also it's going to be emotionally stable for them. Therefore, it's going to empower women, because you're not staining their bodies by the work they are doing, and you're also giving them space to talk, and therefore you're empowering them as well, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Yeah, and I think that's very important. Yeah.
Good, thank you. That was a very good answer. And do you think there will be much need for training, or do you think women will learn very quickly how to make the charcoal briquettes?
In order to train, you only need 1 week. You don't need a month or 3 weeks. Just 1 week, Monday to Friday, 3 hours, and you're ready to go. Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I hope it will be a great success. So thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mary, we're going now, thank you, Purity. We're going now from Kenya to Uganda for us to listen to Charles and for you to talk to him about his project. Charles, are you there and are you ready?
Thank you very much.
Hello, Charles.
Hello to you. Thank you. My name is Charles Bate. I am the founder of Tree Adoption Uganda. Now, Tree Adoption Uganda is a social enterprise that is leveraging climate change mitigation activities like planting trees that also enable corporate companies to offset carbon into means of economically empowering young people that have suffered the consequences of climate change. This afternoon, I wanted to share with you all the story of Nasanga. Nasanga is a 20-year-old single mother, born in one of the most impoverished farming communities in Uganda. Now, she grew up in an environment characterized by nail-biting poverty, unemployment, and a poor education system. At a very tender age of 17, she dropped out of school and became a single mother. Her only option for financial sustainability and to feed her child was to venture into agriculture. But it was challenging. After years of her community cutting down trees, the land was now barren from soil erosion. The landscape was bare, with no trees to protect the crops from strong winds, from strong rains. Last year, when we had the El Nino phenomena, characterized by heavy rains over long periods, strong winds, her entire plantation of 2 acres of bananas was crushed to the ground. Now, that is not only food insecurity that challenges Nasanga's individual household, but that is food insecurity that will challenge this entire community. When young people like Nasanga are enrolled into our Tree Capital program, we provide them with 6 months of climate-smart agricultural practices, permaculture, agroforestry, among others. And we also give them basic business training on how they can run these small farms that they are operating to be economically sustainable. We then go into their homes and set up a fruit tree nursery and task them with looking after those fruit trees until when they grow into saplings. We encourage individuals. We partner up with corporate companies and private companies to adopt these trees as part of corporate social responsibility. But very importantly, the young people like Nasanga are able to accrue some income from these trees that they can use as startup capital to continue growing their small-scale agribusinesses. Now, we then take the trees from the nurseries and plant them around the farmland in a permaculture approach. This transforms a climate-susceptible landscape into a climate-resilient farming ground. When these fruit trees grow up, they act as windbreaks, protecting the crops from strong storms, from strong rains, from El Nino phenomena we saw last year. The roots are interconnected, holding the soil particles together to prevent continuous erosion of the fertile topsoils. The leaves that fall from these trees fall onto the cultivatable land and add an extra layer of mulch, which keeps moisture in the soil, implying that these young people can continue to cultivate even sometimes in the drought periods. But most importantly, the fruits that these fruit trees produce are key and imperative to supplementing nutrition of the children in this community. We have 38% of malnourished children, and most of them from micronutrients like vitamins, which are readily available in these fruits. When these fruit trees start producing fruits, we sell the fruits to companies that are processing juice. We sell the fruits to companies that are making food supplements for children. And that income goes back to Nasanga and young people like her in our program to continue expanding their business, but to also financially support their families. Now, our Tree Capital program is a business solution that is directly addressing climate change through education of climate-smart agricultural practices. We are directly targeting the most vulnerable people in the community, the women, the children who are suffering most from the brunt of climate change. We are endeavoring to stay in line with the principles of climate justice, innovative education, human rights, but most especially science, investing a lot in research that will demystify the linkages between climate change and health, between climate change and social development, so that we can contribute to policymakers to make well-informed decisions. The jobs created from our Tree Capital program, the fruit trees planted in these communities add value to that community and create impact. Last year, we enrolled 30 young people into this program and planted over 10,000 trees. This year, with this award, we can enroll 100 young people into the Tree Capital program, plant over 50,000 trees, and create 400 new job opportunities in this community. Now, we believe that our Tree Capital program has the ability to transform and create a new generation of climate-smart, climate-sensitive leaders and business young people. Thank you very much.
You became a young entrepreneur, and now you're involved in this tree adoption in Uganda that you've been describing. You seem to have learned a number of skills about climate-smart agriculture, but also about partnering. And I wanted to ask you about how you see partnering with corporations who want, for their social, to offset their carbon by having trees planted. How is that going to work?
So currently, we are doing it as a mainstream corporate social responsibility activity. Mm-hmm. We have not created a carbon market for the corporate companies that we are working with. Our marketing strategy for them is, here is an opportunity for you to contribute a particular amount of money to grow trees, but at the same time to contribute startup capital for young people. That is currently our approach. But our sustainability is not sustained from money gotten from these corporates. They can be pretty unpredictable. Their values change year to year, and where they put their money changes year to year. Our core sustainability is in the produce itself. We are planting fast-growing purple fruit trees that enable us to harvest fruit after a short period of time. And it is that fruit that we sell to fruit-making companies, that we sell to individuals in the market, that we sell to companies that are investing into food products for children, that is bringing income to us, that enables us to be sustainable as an organization, but also continuously provides a source of income for our participants.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification that the main source of income is actually the fruit of the fruit trees themselves, which I think is well thought out. I just want to ask you, you used the very interesting example of Nasanga, who's a 17-year-old single mother. And therefore, it seems to me you do have a gender dimension. But I wanted to just hear you say, you know, insofar as you're planting trees and tree capital, to what extent will it be open significantly to women and girls who often find it more difficult to get employment in a high unemployment situation?
So first of all, our decision to have a bigger percentage of women in the program was based on a human-centered design approach. We have been working with this community for some period of time, and we've been collecting feedback from the community. And in our experience, we've realized that the women handle the resources better than their male counterparts. The women invest these resources given to them into their families, as opposed to the men who take the resources to drinking binges, to beer parties. It's true, actually. We've seen it in the community. So that was one of the reasons that informed our decision to mainstream the gender aspect of this project. But then secondly, in our culture and in our traditions, the women bear the largest weight of looking after the family. That puts them at the forefront of people who are affected by climate change. Majority of people involved in agriculture are women. Majority of people that walk long distances to the wells to collect water are women. So our decision was informed by the fact that they are the most vulnerable of the community. They suffer most from the effects of climate change, and they are the best group of people that will utilize these resources that we are giving them in the best way. And then finally, it is a new opportunity for them to set up their own businesses. Many of the women in our community do not own anything. Everything is owned by the men. But when these young women have access to a little startup capital and they can set up a business that they can call their own, create employment opportunities for other young people in their community, it improves their value, but also it gives them an opportunity to contribute to the community.
Thank you. A really good answer on all sides. Maybe just one last point to just tease out a little bit. You use the term climate smart agriculture. You obviously understand the importance of soil fertility, etc. Could you just speak a little bit about how you can encourage young people to understand the importance of good conservation, climate smart agriculture?
So like I mentioned, we are integrating aspects of agroforestry, aspects of permaculture into the program. But we are bringing it in the simplest ways possible. For example, the concept of mulching has been existent in our traditions for a very, very long period of time. The mulch is essentially organic fertilizer. These young people do not have the money to buy chemical fertilizers. When they collect the leaves from the trees, when they cut down banana stems and just line them onto the ground, they start rotting. And as they rot, this rotten composite adds nutrients to the soil. Now, all our young people that go through our program visit our demonstration farm. The farm illustrates all these aspects of climate smart agriculture, but also shows them processes of how important is it to mulch, for example. How important is it to create terraces in the garden that can conserve the water. So they have the opportunity to see this firsthand at our demonstration farm, and then they can go and replicate it in their own communities. Majority of them are not well educated, so they wouldn't understand the technical aspects of climate smart agriculture. And that's why we've labored to create community-likely scenarios on our demonstration farm that can show them that when you're in this set of community, this is what happens to your garden. This is what happens to the garden when you mulch it. This is what happens when you don't mulch it. But also, we've not sat in a boardroom and come up with all these concepts and taken to them. We've gone into the community and studied what practices have been taking place. What practices are they most knowledgeable about? And we've built it from there. For example, for their banana plantations, they cut the banana leaves and place them on the grounds. It is not so different from placing leaves on the grounds. So in our approach, we are just building on already well-developed mechanisms that they've used in the past, and we are just giving them the reason as to why they are important and also improving them.
Thank you very much. I love to hear you talk about mulching, because we mulch in West Africa as well, so that's good. Thank you for an excellent presentation, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Right, Mary, we are going now from mulching to swimming, because we're going into the Indian Ocean for you to meet Barker, Angelique, and Karuna, who are in Mauritius.
Okay, so hi, Mr. Robertson, and firstly, it's a great privilege to meet you, and I'm from Mauritius, so there's me, Karuna, and Barker here. Unfortunately, Angelique couldn't make it as she's in Seychelles at the moment.
Okay, so it's Barker and Karuna.
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay, and I know that Angelique is also part of your project, so I did read about you beforehand, so please go ahead.
Okay, so very quickly just to introduce, we come from two organizations which work on a project together. So firstly is the organization called SIA, which is a regional organization that connects young people from African and Asian small island developing states. And the second organization is the Global Shapers Focus Hub, which is part of a wider community of Global Shapers community. Okay, so coming to the project Seeing Blue now, and at the very outset, I want to say that we very often forget one key component in the climate change discourse, which is our oceans. Now, oceans are not just the world's largest carbon sink, but they support livelihoods of millions of people around the world, especially from coastal communities, poor communities, and small islands like Mauritius and Seychelles. However, climate change has turned this blessing into a curse for us. The curse of rising sea levels, which could swallow our islands and our communities, and the threat to the climate change, equity, right to development, and right to survival. Now, just one example, a study done by the government of Mauritius said that climate change could cost our tourism industry a loss of $50 million and 63,400 people could be left vulnerable. Meanwhile, the fishermen community, which rely a lot on our oceans, have seen a decrease in their catch from 400 pounds to 30 pounds over the past decade. Now, oceans being a very fragile ecosystem, if it has to stand the best chance to be the world's largest ocean sink, we have to protect it from all possible man-made impacts. Now, this is where we step in. So the two organizations that I talked to you about, the completely youth-led organizations, we came together for a project called Seeing Blue. And this is a project which is an ocean leadership project by young people, for young people. And one of the key components of this project is the creation of young ocean leaders who are both empowered and supported to come up with innovative solutions to both climate change adaptation and ocean conservation. Now, over the past 2 years that the project has been running, we've had annual competition. And just from the last year's annual competition, we managed to impact 90 young people in Mauritius, direct impact. And we are supporting 6 tangible youth-led projects. Now, a few examples of these projects. These projects are very innovative and completely youth-led. And the interesting fact about it is most of them are led by young women. So now a few examples about these projects. They're very innovative. One example is the creation of a 4-step barrier to be put at the mouth of a river so that they can trap and treat plastics, pesticides, and other debris. Another project, which is kind of similar, is the placement of underground bins at the mouth of 18 rivers in Mauritius to trap marine debris, in the rivers before they get into the sea. And another one is coming up with an innovative technology to prevent the loss of fishing gears in the oceans. Now, there are also young people also came up with very innovative projects which also imply the community in them. So one of them is a wide-scale plantation of mangroves by the community themselves, and another one is a social business which will take plastic waste and make furniture out of them for use in schools in disadvantaged communities. Now, these are the different kind of projects that young people have come up with, and we, Seeing Blue, our team, is supporting them to make it a reality.
And now we wish to build upon these impactful projects and Seeing Blue and take it to Seychelles as a first step, because we feel that we young people have a lot to share between islands. And for us, the primary reason why we're pitching this project to you is to show that we as small island developing states who are on the front line of climate change are not going to stand here and drown. So our project Seeing Blue will take the path of connect, create, catalyze, and convince. First of all, for connect. There were 2 takeaways that we got from the first 2 editions of Seeing Blue, which was, first of all, that young people are not as engaged with the ocean as they ought to be. A lot of the people who came to our prize giving were not even aware how to swim. They had never scuba dived, even though we have a wealth of the ocean around us. And how can you protect the ocean if you don't know what's underneath it? The second takeaway is that they had so much creative energy that just needed to be channeled into something positive. And this is what we've done through Seeing Blue. So as Karuna said, we impacted 90 people directly who have gone on to spread the word in their own organizations. And now what we want to do next is to impact at least 500 people and support a lot more of their projects by involving Seychelles as well in the next competition. So the competition itself is focused on having innovative solutions put forward that limit man-made impact on the ocean. Why do we want this? Because we need to give the oceans the best chance to recover. The corals are critical in the fight against climate change. And by doing this innovation-related project, what we're saying, first of all, is we're not having yet another race awareness campaign. And secondly, we're giving a very strong signal that young people are there with solutions, even when politicians say that, no, we don't have any other choice. What we're saying is that we have no excuse not to innovate for the climate. So this is the connect aspect of things. Now the next is the create. Create is when these people have submitted the projects to the competition, we believe that they need to be nurtured, because what we've seen from the last Seeing Blue chapter is that a lot of these young people come from rural and coastal areas. Particularly, Corona earlier mentioned that at least 60,000 people were relocated, and a lot of the kids who applied to the project were from those areas. So we will be nurturing them with capacity building material. In fact, in June, we are holding the first ever Ocean Advocacy Bootcamp, where they will be exposed to experts on the ocean, on climate change, and on leadership, where they'll be able to refine their project and bring it to life. We're really excited about this. The next step, the catalyze factor, is what we spoke about in our bid. Symbolically, we will build up on our project to have statues underwater in concrete terms, and the pun is definitely intended here. There will be statues made of marine concrete, which will be used as an artificial reef to allow the coral reefs to grow on there, while the natural coral reefs have the chance to grow back, breathe, and recover. Why this is impactful is because, as Karuna mentioned, we have seen the decline of livelihoods because of climate change. Fishermen, coastal community, the young people that are participating in our projects, they are all excited about the ocean, but they have no chance to make a livelihood out of the ocean because it is impacted because of climate change. So with these statues, we will not only be allowing to have a feature of tourism, but more importantly, they will be a monitor for climate change. As you would have heard in the news, the Great Barrier Reef took a battering because of the El Nino effect. Charles mentioned that El Nino happened last year, but for us it is still happening. Our coral reefs are still happening, are still dying, and we want to rectify this issue with these statues. So these will be a symbolic link between us and Seychelles. So we will have the pilot, and the award will help us commission the first statues here in Mauritius and then build upon them in Seychelles. And the last part, the convince aspect of things, we also realize, maybe you would be aware that Mauritius and Seychelles have both churned out roadmaps on the ocean economy, and young people are mentioned nowhere in the roadmap. And these roadmaps focus on the extraction of hydrocarbons, they focus on the petroleum bunkers, and they only have a token emphasis on climate change and sustainable development. This is because young people who care about the climate are not present in the creation of these policies. And with our convince aspect of things, we want to give young people a safe space, which we already have done. At this year and last year actually, when we had Davos, when the World Economic Forum had its annual meeting, we connected to Davos via a live link where we invited fishermen and young people to the table to give their views on how they want the ocean to be developed. And this for us is critical. We want to give young people this platform, first of all, to have their ideas, to voice their ideas, and thirdly, to see it transform into something tangible in the form of their own solutions and the statues. This for us will be our impact of Seeing Blue, and we're really excited to put it forward. Thank you, Kate and Mary, to give us a chance to pitch this to you.
Well, thank you both very much for a really very interesting presentation. I'm particularly interested because I spent a lot of time thinking about and visiting some of the small island developing states prior to the conference in Paris. I was asked, because I was the special envoy of the Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, on climate change, to particularly focus on the SIDS and the least developed countries. So I know exactly the concerns that you spoke about, and I want to throw you out a bit on the way in which you've been able to have a very participatory approach, linking Mauritius and the Seychelles. I'm not quite sure I'm looking at Purity. Well, I'm looking at you two now, sorry. I was looking at Purity for a minute and talking to you two. Now I'm looking at you two, so that's okay. I wanted to build on your link between Mauritius and the Seychelles in developing this project, and to ask how you will gather in that knowledge base that you're creating, how you will benefit from the various ways in which the issues are being tackled, be it from tracking debris to preventing the loss of fishing gear that you mentioned to planting mangroves. I mean, are you going to have a sort of platform to keep that knowledge, that local knowledge?
Thank you for asking that question. So our main answer is that we will be using the tools that are made available to us, young people. The first component of our project, as I mentioned, is a competition. And this will be launched for Mauritians and Seychelles. They can both apply, and we'll have a panel of jury who will select projects from both islands. And the prizes obviously will be allocated to young people shared equitably. The second step is the capacity building measures, the exposure to ocean experts, to mentors, and so on, can be replicated by the internet and also through exchanges if the funding allows. And the third component, which is the bootcamp, which we're piloting in July, we will be able to hold a regional one. The reason why I think this aspect is really important is because this region, the AIMS region of the States, is the only one that does not have a regional secretariat. And we feel that this is leading to a severe issue that we can't share data, we can't share best practices, we can't share solutions. And I see no reason why young people can't be the catalyst to that. So we will be using the internet as a platform a lot. But obviously what we want to do is that there's a lot of sharing that happens between young people who have internet and people who are on the ground, because a lot of the people who applied are very much in the communities. So the impact will be spread quite generously. In terms of the statutes, this will be logistically a little bit more complex because actually the idea to it came to us, to me and Karuna first, when we emerged after the Pittsburgh One-Year War. And we wanted to have an artificial coral reef. And we realized that a lot of the ecosystem in the Indian Ocean is very much interlinked. For example, taking the example of whales and dolphins, for instance, they go from South Africa and travel upwards to Mauritius and then on to Seychelles. So the ecosystem is really important and very much interconnected. So we would be having in Mauritius and then replicating in the first instance in Seychelles, and then securing the funding to have the symbolic statue in Seychelles as well. In actually, we've already done part of the scoping exercise for this, so it will be a lot easier to pilot it here and then take it to Seychelles, just as we did for Seeing Blue, where we started it here and then merged it with Seychelles.
And also, sorry, just to add to that, so one of the initiators of Seeing Blue, one of the organizations involved is SIA, which is a regional organization, and the way it works is that we have chapters, called the SIA chapters, in different islands. There is a very active chapter in Mauritius, there is a very active chapter in Seychelles, and in other islands like Comoros, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Maldives. So just to let you know that there is a group of young people who've been working for the past 2 years, and they're there with a proper organization structure. Very easy to replicate the projects and run the competition because they're out there and working.
Yeah. And I mean, I notice, so I don't think this is probably a problem, that your 3 young women, I know Angelique isn't with us today, but she's with the project. So I assume you've been thinking of the sort of gender dimensions. But when you mentioned that many people in small island states don't know how to swim, and when you mentioned the boot camp, I mean, are you conscious that for young women it's harder sometimes to be as proactive? Have you factored in that all these projects will be open and accessible to young women?
Yeah, in fact, it's very interesting because the competition that we did last year, where we invited young people to come up with projects, concrete and tangible projects to tackle the issue of marine debris, you'd be surprised to know that the first prize winners of both categories are actually women. It's a team of women. And same for the second and third prize, most of them are women. So we've already seen a lot of women coming up with very innovative ideas. So yeah, that's one aspect, and we're very excited about that. It's the same even in the organization that we're working in, both for SIA and the Global Shapers. Most of our membership base is somehow women.
Mm.
And to add to this, we were actually very conscious of the fact that women, especially in the boot camp where they might be required to dive and swim, first of all, there might be the body image issue where they might be reluctant to appear in swimsuits. Secondly, because a lot of the careers and solutions related to the ocean are in STEM-related subjects. And thirdly, because there's a very basic issue here that a lot of young people do not have access to go out, seminars, and so on and so forth. So what we've done, and I did not have time to present this in the pitch, is that we also have a mentoring component in the project. And our first 3 mentors, in fact, are actually women as well. Yeah. We've deliberately chosen 3 women as role models. The first 2 are 2 young women who just launched their ocean documentary. And the second is one shaper who is based in Argentina, who has a project on marine debris. So we're very conscious that gender could be an issue, so we made sure that there would be a balance between the mentors available to these women to show that, yes, women can.
Good. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that mentoring project, because that also is a very good way of supporting women, in particular young women. You both mentioned, or at least you mentioned in your project, and I was quite interested that the roadmaps at a policy level don't mention young people and haven't referred. I hope you're not going to let that go. I mean, I hope you're going to shake things up and make sure that young people will be mentioned, or that will be questioned, because when you're proactive in your community, you've also got to make sure policies are proactive. So I hope you're using your advocacy in that regard.
We are, absolutely. I mean, this is part of the project as well, the safe space for dialogue. Actually, during the first dialogue that we had linked to Davos, we had some very, very critical and strong exchanges between fishermen, young people, and public servants and government officials, because young people counted that we were not part of the drafting of this roadmap. This is not our roadmap. We want a sustainable use of the ocean. We want to focus more on marine conservation, on biotechnology. Why are you insisting on drilling for oil? We don't care about oil. The type of exchanges, and we need to provide them both at an online level, but also at a physical level where they can actually physically interact.
Well, thank you both very much, and please give my best wishes to Angelique. Tell her that I was sorry not to meet her like the opportunity I had to meet you, but you've got a great project, and all the best with it.
Thank you.
Okay. So now, Kate, do you want me to say a few words of my reflections on the projects?
Yes, please, Mary. Before I pass back to you, just to say to the contestants, Mary and the team will be reviewing the presentations over the coming days, and we'll get their view and the results and come back to you just as soon as we can, okay? So don't inundate Matthew with 600 emails a day, okay? We'll come back to you as soon as we can. The other thing that I would ask you, all of you, in the work you're doing, even if you're not the lucky person who wins the Mary Robinson Climate Justice Prize, I would ask all of you, whenever possible, to photograph and to film your work and send it to us, and we will be pushing it out and making as many people aware of it as we possibly can, and you know this. We are anxious to support you in this. And then, Mary, if I hand back to you for comments and closing.
Yes. Thank you very much. I must say there were 3 very impressive presentations, because it seemed to me that all 3 of you had understood, all 3 relating to the projects, had understood very well the different dimensions of climate justice. I mean, there's no doubt that the first dimension of climate justice is the injustice of climate change, that it's impacting on the poorest countries and poorest communities who have to fight back. And whether it's a community in Kenya or in Uganda or a small island state in Mauritius or the Seychelles, the truth is you're not responsible for the emissions to the extent that developed countries have been and big emitters are, and yet you feel the brunt. So you have to be smarter and more aware of this. And I really am very impressed by the thought-through nature of the proposals. Purity, who started the discussion, was very thought through about the cost effectiveness of the charcoal briquettes, but also they don't cut down as much trees. They don't. They have better health potential because indoor smoking, indoor inhalation is a huge issue for causing death and serious injury to millions of people, more than 4 million people worldwide nowadays. And the fact that this would empower women because they can't get jobs in construction, etc., very much impressed me. Charles clearly is an entrepreneur from quite a young age who's on to, I think, at least his third project in the tree adoption, Uganda, and the tree capital project. And again, he has a great sense of how this will provide potential livelihood for disadvantaged young people, and that's really very exciting. And he clearly saw that young women are very good responders to getting an opportunity, and will take the opportunity and actually do more maybe, and make themselves self-sufficient, earn their livelihoods, feed their families, etc. And that therefore he's happy to have a strong gender focus in his work as well. And then coming to Barca and Karuna on behalf of themselves and Angelique, I do think we have tended to not ignore the oceans, but not really understand the potential. And I think it's wonderful that as young people, you really do see that potential and see the possibilities through a lot of participation and involvement to tease out those potentials and get young people to think about different ways of dealing with waste and what's spoiling the oceans, but also the need to ensure that the lives of fisher folks who depend on the ocean is defended, that you have local knowledge. I'm impressed that you penetrated Davos. That's good skill in making your voices heard. And all three of you have really been very impressive in the right sense, because I feel justice is an injustice in climate change. Therefore, those most affected must be able to get the opportunities. And that's what you three have been doing. You've been finding the opportunities, making it possible. And I really, really want to encourage you, and I'm delighted that the Mayor Robinson Foundation Climate Justice Award has stimulated even more of your thought processes and your ideas and your thinking of others, your community sense. And I agree with Kate. We can only have one winner, but all three of you, I hope, all three projects will continue to work and be encouraged to do so. This exposure, even if you're not a winner, I hope will help you locally and maybe even nationally in getting more support for the work, the excellent work you're doing. So I congratulate all three of you. I'm delighted that One Young World has provided this award, and I'm really very glad that I had the opportunity to meet you in this way and to hear your projects. I feel excited and stimulated. I feel a bit like Archbishop Desmond Tutu. You know, he gets very excited when he's stimulated by young people, and I know what he means. I feel energized. I'm going to go back to work now in my own foundation, feeling 10 feet tall because of the project you're doing and the sense of young people really going to carry this forward and change our world, because that's what we need. We need transformation, we need change, we need you to do it, and you've met the challenge, all three of you. And as I said, there can only be one winner, but all three of you are winners as far as I'm concerned. So thank you so much.
Mary, wonderful, wonderful Mary. We thank you. You inspire us. Wonderful finalists. You as well. Mary, we look forward to seeing you in Ottawa. Thank you. Yeah. Bless you. Everybody else, keep up the good work and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kate.